Hey, I get it, standing in front of a workbench, scrolling through endless welders, wondering if you're about to waste a good chunk of cash on something that'll sit idle in the garage. I've been there, and the last thing I want for you is to end up with a machine that sounds impressive on paper but turns out to be a hassle when you actually need to splice a pipe, repair a chassis, or do a little artful metalwork on the weekend. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So let's break down the Miller Multimatic 215 Pro with the TIG Contractor Kit and see if it really earns a spot on your bench, or if you'd be better off looking elsewhere. First off, the biggest question most people ask is whether a multi-process welder is actually useful in everyday shop life, or if it's just a marketing buzzword. The Multimatic 215 Pro tries to answer that by packing MIG, TIG, and stick capabilities into one chassis, plus a few clever automation tricks like pulsed MIG and pulsed TIG. In real-world terms, that means you can jump from welding thin aluminum sheet on a custom project to feeding a thick steel beam for a structural repair without swapping machines or buying a separate TIG torch. If your work swings between automotive, small fabrication, and a bit of home repair, that flexibility can shave you both time and the cost of owning 3 separate units. Now, who should actually consider this unit? If you're a contractor who regularly needs to switch between thin-gauge stainless steel for exhaust work and heavier carbon steel for frame repairs, the multi-voltage MVP, multi-voltage power, feature is a genuine time saver. You can plug the welder into a standard 120V outlet for light jobs, then step up to 240V when the project calls for deeper penetration. The TIG Contractor Kit that comes bundled includes a foot pedal, a torch, and a gas cup, so you're not forced to hunt down accessories separately. For a shop that already has a decent power supply but occasionally runs off a generator on site, that versatility can keep you productive without having to lug around a second machine. On the flip side, if you're a hobbyist who sticks mostly to one material, say, you only weld backyard barbecue frames or a few garden projects, you might not reap the full benefit of the multi-process design. In that scenario, a dedicated MIG or stick welder that's a bit cheaper could make more sense. The Multimatic does carry a higher price tag than a single process unit, and while the included accessories are nice, you'll still need to invest in proper shielding gas, a decent spool of wire, and maybe a separate TIG gas bottle if you plan to do a lot of aluminum work. Let's talk about the practical strengths that actually show up when you fire it up. The first thing I noticed is the auto-set function. You hook up your wire, select the material and thickness on the screen, and the welder does a quick sweep to dial in voltage, amperage, and pulse frequency. In a busy shop that's juggling multiple jobs, that can cut setup time from 10 minutes down to a couple. It's not a magic button that makes you a welding wizard, but it does remove a lot of guesswork, especially for newer techs who might otherwise spend an hour tweaking parameters. Another feature that matters day to day is BeadVision. The display shows a real-time preview of the bead profile based on your settings, letting you anticipate how the weld will look before you even touch the torch. When you're working on a visible finish like a decorative rail or a chassis panel that's going to be seen, it gives you a confidence boost. I tried it on a thin 0.025-inch stainless sheet for a custom bike frame, and the preview helped me avoid a common mistake of over-penetration that would have required grinding later. The pulsed technology on both MIG and TIG is also worth mentioning. Pulsed MIG can produce a smoother bead with less spatter on thin aluminum, which is a big deal if you're doing a lot of body panel work where post-cleanup time eats into profit. Pulsed TIG, on the other hand, provides more precise heat input for delicate joints, like welding the inner tubes of a stainless steel exhaust where you don't want to burn through the wall. In practice, those pulses feel like a subtle rhythm that you can hear in the sound of the arc, and they actually reduce the amount of filler material you need. Now, let's look at the hidden trade-offs. Because the machine tries to do everything, the user interface can feel a little crowded. The LCD screen packs a lot of information, and if you're not used to navigating through multiple menus, there's a learning curve. I spent a solid half hour just getting comfortable with toggling between MIG, TIG, and stick modes. Once you get the hang of it, it's fine, but that initial time investment is something to factor in if you're looking for a plug-and-play solution. The weight is another practical consideration. At around 70 pounds, it's portable enough.